Hello, and welcome to Dunsky's video series examining how clean energy is shaping our economy and how the latest developments in clean energy impact our clients. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Nick Martin, one of our consultants out of Toronto, for a conversation about the US election and how the results may impact our clients in both the United States and Canada. Nick, thanks for speaking with me today. I'm sure, like many of our clients, you were glued to the news as election results came in over the last few days. And as an American yourself, I imagine it was even more stressful for you.
Yeah, thanks, Reagan. I'd be lying if I said election night and the days following it were not stressful. And I'm sure many folks feel the same, especially after an election that will likely have the highest turnout for a presidential election in over a century. But it does seem like we have a conclusion, at least in the presidential race. It's not so clear-cut for control of Congress, where it's going to come down to the state where I grew up, Georgia, and the two runoff elections that we'll have there in January.
It's really true, Nick. The realm of possibilities for an incoming Biden administration will hinge on the control of the Senate. But since we don't know how that will settle, I think for today's conversation, let's focus on things that a Biden administration will be able to do regardless of that outcome. And if the Democrats end up winning both seats, we'll have another call later.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's definitely a lot of changes that we can expect from the Biden administration that are in the executive branch's power and that will have, concrete impacts on our clients. We could probably spend hours discussing the implications of this election, but let's unpack just a few of these in the areas that we focus on here at Dunsky: energy efficiency, renewable energy, and electric mobility. So in terms of energy efficiency, I think a significant change with a Biden presidency will be new leadership and direction at the Department of Energy, which is responsible for setting federal efficiency standards. Under Trump, we've seen federal standards stagnate and even backslide, and I'm sure many of our U.S. clients have been following Trump's attempts to reverse lighting standards under ISA, and we can't forget his strange obsession and disdain for low-flow bathroom fixtures as well. But under Biden, I think it's safe to assume this trend will be reversed and the department will once again begin proposing and implementing stronger efficiency standards. So what do you think this might mean for our clients, Reagan?
So a few things. I think for our American clients that administer efficiency programs, stronger efficiency standards may make it harder to find claimable savings as the baseline increases. And actually the same can be said for our Canadian clients as well. So stronger US efficiency standards will put pressure on Canada's federal standards process, and typically we follow the US's lead in this regard when it comes to products and appliance standards, though sometimes with a bit of a time lag.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And so what does that mean, or what should or could our clients do in response?
So a few things. I think first of all, nobody should panic. Savings opportunities will exist, but they may be tougher to find at first. And there will be mounting pressure to find those energy savings. So now we've performed potential studies in many leading jurisdictions in the US and Canada, where lighting markets are becoming completely transformed. But with expanded programs and measures, we're finding our clients can maintain or even increase savings in those jurisdictions. The second thing is to not be afraid of revisiting cost effectiveness frameworks. So this goes for program administrators, governments, and regulators. So one of the challenges with the existing traditional cost effectiveness frameworks is that some programs which on a purely energy savings basis may not meet cost effective standards, those savings are being left on the table. But if we've helped a lot of our clients in identifying and quantifying non-energy benefits across all sectors, and this can really help identify ways to claim all those energy savings that are out there if we can really fully account for all the benefits that come from these programs. And then I'd say the last thing is we'd encourage our clients to think beyond traditional and conventional efficiency for their demand side management programs. Beneficial electrification, for example, is becoming a bigger part of portfolios as policymakers look for emission reductions. And we've helped a number of clients assess opportunities with using our new heating electrification adoption model, which is a great granular tool for heat pump technologies. So we'd advise our clients to be ready to ask regulators to adjust benefit cost frameworks to enable these types of initiatives.
Yeah, those are all very excellent points, Reagan. And I can say that the increased attention on heating electrification is particularly exciting to me as I've worked on a number of those projects with our new model. It's quite a bit of fun. So let's move on to renewables. What do you think might happen with the Biden administration on that front, Reagan?
So, there's so much that could be said about renewables, but I think the big picture here is that we should expect increased support for renewables under a Biden administration, and that could take many forms. We'll likely see an effort to strengthen carbon regulations on power producers, moving away from Trump's replacement of the CPP and likely moving towards something even stronger than the proposed CPP under the Obama administration. As many states are set to exceed those goals from the CPP. We'll also see new leadership at FERC, which will likely be advantageous to renewables as well. And also debates around other broader mechanisms to control GHGs, such as carbon pricing, cap and trade, low carbon mandates. And while tax policy is in the hands of Congress, I'd also wager a Biden administration increases the odds of the extension of lucrative tax benefits for renewable systems that have helped deployment in the past. But this isn't a done deal by any means. Either way, I think it's safe to say a combination of policy changes will happen that will be beneficial for renewable technologies.
In Canada, it'll also be important to watch these developments as well, as our electric system is fairly well connected to the United States, both physically and policy-wise. Canadian hydropower could become a lot more valuable as an export. A great example of this, I think, is what we've just seen in New York and their decision to count imported hydro from Quebec in their renewable portfolio standard. It's also important to remember that a lot of FERC's policies bleed over into Canada as well in order for us to maintain that market connection with them. And I think this is important for our clients for a couple of reasons. If you're a utility, you got to think about how sensitive your system is to customer solar adoption. It's very important to keep in mind the different paradigm renewables have created for the electricity sector. Things can change very quickly now. It's no longer about central bodies making decisions on massive investments that can take years and years. It's now about a lot of little decisions by energy consumers. Small changes in that value proposition for those consumers and customers can result in big changes in the market. And this really exemplifies the importance of scenario planning, something we've been helping a lot of clients with lately. There can be wild swings, so it's important to understand how this might impact your customer base and your business. And I think for our non-utility clients as well, it's going to be really important to be ready for an uptick in renewable adoption, especially in jurisdictions that have not seen a lot of this historically. More renewables is generally a very desirable thing for policymakers everywhere, but there can be many other barriers such as interconnection, permitting, financing that can be limiting adoption. Proactively addressing these can be vital for enabling a vibrant market for these technologies, and we've been helping a lot of clients think and deal with these things in the last several years.
All right, Nick, let's change gears and talk electric mobility. What do you think some of the ramifications of the US election are going to be on electric mobility?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll be watching for is how quickly and aggressively a Biden administration moves to strengthen corporate average fuel economy standards, or CAFE standards. Under Trump, we saw CAFE standards get rolled back from about 55 miles per gallon by 2025 to about 40 miles per gallon by 2026. So, pretty significant drop. And CAFE standards are an important part of incentivizing consumers to go electric, as automakers tend to subsidize the cost of their efficient and electric vehicles to ensure their fleets meet the required averages. Biden's campaign rhetoric suggests he will pursue standards that act almost like a zero-emission vehicle mandate that assure all new light and medium-duty vehicles are zero emission. I think it's also safe to assume that under a Biden administration, the federal government will no longer challenge California or any other state's abilities to set more stringent emission standards on vehicles, and that's going to be a pretty big, significant step as well.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, we know in the United States, regulatory changes that make EVs more attractive to the consumer could spur increased demand. So even without strong US federal support for EVs, we're seeing faster and faster adoption of electric mobility options as prices continue to decline. And for Canada, the thing to note is that there are probably some very happy regulators and politicians who are no longer thinking about making a choice between following the US and weakening standards or going forward on their own and risking, segmenting the auto market in North America. So this is because in the Obama years, Canada and the US agreed to harmonize on fuel economy standards. But if Biden is able to accelerate these standards even more than what was proposed, then we could see a similar acceleration here in Canada. And Canada will also benefit from more certainty regarding California's standards since the Canadian federal government agreed to work with California to reduce emissions from vehicles. So what does this mean for our clients in the US and Canada? So if you aren't already, make sure that you're planning for an electric mobility future, at least for light duty vehicles, where our adoption modeling has shown robust growth, even before Biden's election. The jury is still somewhat out for heavy duty vehicles, however, where we might see a greater role for alternative technologies such as hydrogen. And with our electric utilities, EVs represent both a growing market opportunity as well as a challenge for ensuring reliable and affordable service as load patterns change and grow. So it's really important to understand both of these angles. On the opportunity side, we help our electric utilities understand the levers for accelerating EV adoption in their territories, such as increasing the amount of public charging infrastructure. And we also help them understand ways to mitigate those peak demand grid impacts for electric vehicles as well. For utilities, we are finding that supporting charging infrastructure can really pay off as it increases consumption at the charging site, but also at people's homes. So on the impact side, we've adapted our EV models to provide granular, location-specific forecasts to help utilities understand where they might expect to see the most load growth from EV adoption. We tend to see these technologies adopted in clusters, so there can be significant distribution level impacts. And so understanding and forecasting these localized impacts is really important to our utility clients. Well, thanks for joining me today, Nick, to talk about the election and the implications for clean energy and our clients in the US and Canada.
Oh, it's always my pleasure.
And I think it's fair to say that there are exciting times ahead for the clean energy transition, and we are excited to work with our clients to help them navigate that change. Thanks to all of you for joining us today and listening in. If you have any other questions or follow-ups based on what you heard today, feel free to reach out to us via our website or connect with us on LinkedIn. Thanks very much.